In the newscast this morning, there was a call from a former chairman of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, that's the ECJ. Professor Errol Miller is his name. He wants the powers that be to repeal the legislative change which facilitated the subsuming of the Office of the Political Ombudsman into the ECJ. Professor Miller initially made his comments while addressing a JTA forum conference. And he was also a guest on Nationwide at 5 last evening. Here's what he had to say.
I hope that good sense will prevail, that both the government and the opposition in Parliament, by this I mean House and Senate, would go back and make the 2024 local government election be the only election contested with this amendment, and also that in the process of doing that, restore the convention. In other words, I say, I hope good sense prevail and together they repeal this amendment and secondly, restore the convention. Because if the breaking of the convention is kept as precedent and you begin to apply that to electoral boundaries where the party in power sets the boundaries that suits it, we go back to the disgraceful past.
Professor Miller there, who was the first chairman when the ECJ was formed back in 2006. And the work of the ECJ is well documented, and how critical it was to transforming Jamaica's electoral process from a point where a lot of questions were being asked about the freeness and fairness, as it were, of those elections. Violence, the days where bullets won the ballots. So the work of the ECJ is well documented. It was first the Electoral Advisory Committee, and then it morphed into becoming the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, and it continues to do great work. But the former chairman says the amendment drags the ECJ commissioners into direct involvement with partisan politics.
The matter is not only the political ombudsman, but what people are not saying is the manner in which this Electoral Commission Interim Act of 2006 was amended. It was amended by breaking the convention. That was my principal concern.
And just to be clear for the listeners, what convention are you speaking to, Prof?
Here's the convention. Since 1979, between the party holding the majority in the parliament and the party holding the minority, that the party holding the majority in parliament would never pass a law or set constituency boundaries by using its majority. It would seek to also have the minority involved in it. That's the convention.
The voice there of former ECJ Commissioner Professor Errol Miller. He went on to say the amendment drags, after he said the amendment drags the ECJ into direct involvement in partisan politics. He went on to say that he was amazed that the legislation that resulted in the Office of the Political Ombudsman being subsumed by the ECJ was allowed to pass.
Initially, when this matter came up, the opposition actually didn't raise objection. They said they went away, thought about it, and then came back.
They didn't take the principal reason that they should be objecting, which is that the convention was being broken. I am amazed that this has gone almost silently. I couldn't keep silent. I probably wouldn't have said anything if it was just legislation being passed, that bad legislation. But to me, the unconscionable matter was that the principal reason that we have made the progress we have made to date over the period 1997 to the current time, that convention is broken, and the public not told that that was happening. And I am convinced that people knew that that was happening.
The voice there of Errol Miller. Professor Errol Miller, former chairman of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. I'm not in agreement with removing the office of the ombudsman, or subsuming it, as it were, into the ECJ. And that is a partial stance. Not to get rid of it is the problem I have, not necessarily subsuming it into the ECJ. The problem we had with the ombudsman was that there wasn't enough teeth in the office of the ombudsman. That's the problem we were having with the ombudsman. The ombudsman was a referee without cards, as Juan Cliff Hughes is known to say quite often when he's commenting on this matter. That is the issue. Removing the office wasn't what the situation required, or subsuming it. What the situation required was to give the ombudsman the autonomy to properly sanction politicians who run afoul of the codes of conduct. That's what the situation required. But you know, our politicians have often demonstrated, and this is on both sides of the divide, regardless of who is in power, whether it's from the JLP or the PNP, they've often demonstrated an aversion to being properly policed. That is the issue I have with what has transpired. Give the office of the office could stand on its own, and give it the autonomy that it needs. Now, as my colleague Ricardo Brooks said last evening, and put to the goodly professor, that the ECJ has a lot of credibility capital stored up. And it's not something that ought to just sit on a shelf. You know, I agree with that assessment. They should put that credibility capital to good use. So I'm prepared to watch and see what will happen, and then see if we need to reverse this course of action. But the truth is, it was an unnecessary course of action. What the matter required was to give the political ombudsman the proper autonomy, the proper power, teeth. The office was a dog with a lot of bark and little bite. And many politicians were rightly not scared of the ombudsman at all. But let us see what happens going forward. Because what we can't do is to allow the situation, the political situation in Jamaica, to descend to where it once was. That's for sure something that we cannot allow to happen. The next item in the newscast that I want to offer brief comments on, because I won't be talking for very long this morning. I'll give you a lot of latitude this morning for your calls and to share your views. But the leadership of the Jamaica College, JC, a storied secondary institution in this country, well known, well sought after, is making fresh allegations about the use of funds under the tenure of former Old Boys Association President Major Basil Jarrett and the current president of the association, Lance Hilton, along with JC Trust Chairman Derek Jones and acting JC Principal Wayne Robinson, sued Jarrett in 2022 over monies raised from the sale of uniforms, suggesting impropriety on Jarrett's part. However, and it's important that we know this, the Supreme Court of this country dismissed the claim last month. Just last month. And the leadership of JC is again making fresh allegations about the use of funds. On Thursday, the JC Old Boys and members of the school community staged a demonstration outside the Old Hope Road Institution, demanding the resignation of the Hilton-led board. But Hilton maintains that Jarrett must explain what happened to an additional $20 million. You know, I'm wondering if I should just not play these clips and just say what I have to say. And I think that's the course of action I'm going to take. Stop embarrassing the school. the current students, the old boys of the JC institution that mean the school well, can't be pleased with what is happening. Just last month, the Supreme Court dismissed the claim, and now there are fresh allegations once again. Why can't these grown men sit in a room and resolve this matter in the best interest of the boys who attend this school? That's all I say about it. And I want to say one Arden. So I leave that one alone. The sentencing hearing, though, for a man convicted of the 2017 murder of 15-year-old schoolgirl Shanika Gray began in the St. James Circuit Court yesterday. Defense attorney Chumu Paris opened proceedings arguing that the death penalty should not apply to his client, as defense attorneys are wont to do. Here's more in this report from George Davis.
Paris contended in his submission to High Court Justice Bertram Morrison that the death penalty should only apply if the court finds that Gregory Roberts is incapable of reform. Using several case files, Paris submitted that murder is always a heinous crime, but it is clear that the death sentence must be reserved for exceptional categories of cases within the more serious cases of offense. He told the court that the Crown, in its submission, had stated that sentencing should start at 50 years. Paris argued that what the Crown is saying is that as an alternative to the death penalty, this man must serve that, pointing to Roberts' co-accused Mario Morrison, who pleaded guilty to the murder back in September 2022. Paris suggested that absolute fairness was lacking in the case. Morrison entered into a plea deal with the state and was sentenced to life in prison a month later. Paris stated that it's interesting that the former co-accused then became the Crown's main witness after admitting to having sexual intercourse with a minor and was found with her phone, but was never indicted by any of those. He further urged the court to reject the Crown's argument that Roberts is incapable of reform until he serves 50 years. Referencing a former case ruling, Paris said, quote, "I submit, my lord, that the particular range in dealing with this particular matter, I think it is safe to say, is within 15 years to life, but certainly nearer to 20, and upwards in considering a starting point." End quote. He continued, quote, "I am submitting that life imprisonment or 30 years would not be an appropriate starting point in this case." End quote. Meanwhile, a victim impact report from Shanika's family was also read at Roberts' sentencing hearing. In the report read by the clerk of the court, Shanika's aunt, Nikita Gray, urged the court to severely punish him for killing her niece. She said, quote, "I never wished death on anyone until I met Gregory. He makes me sick to my stomach. You have shown no remorse for slaughtering my niece like an animal. Gregory Roberts needs more than just a slap on the wrist. He should not be able to commit crimes like this and to get away with it. Today, Your Honor, I ask for no mercy when you make your decision in sentencing him. He deserves life in prison with no consideration for parole." End quote. The aunt said the death of Shanika, who was the first child for her brother, has caused a deep depression for family members. Shanika's aunt added that she herself has since developed hypertension. The victim impact report further quotes Gray saying, quote, "Because of your crime, my other niece is now afraid to traverse the streets of Montego Bay. She's even afraid to attire herself like a girl because she does not want to be a target for someone like him." End quote. A social inquiry report done in St. James and St. Thomas shows that Roberts maintains his innocence and showed no remorse for the crime for which he was convicted in November last year. Shanika was a grade 10 student at the time of her death in 2017. She was found 3 days after she had been reported missing. The sentencing hearing will continue on Friday morning. George Davis for Nationwide News.
Thank you very much for that report there, George. And allow me to welcome those who are joining us via YouTube as well. Yeah, I know the folks on the 90 FM band are or day ones, but you know, we have a very vibrant and growing community over on our YouTube channel. So good morning to you, all of the folks over on YouTube. Primrose, Mark Peart, Alvin Bernard, Donald McFarlane, just to name a few. We see you guys and we appreciate the company and the respectful dialogue that we expect to take place in the YouTube channel. Public debate is essential to good governance, so let's keep the debate going. You just heard that story from George Davis regarding the sentencing hearing for the man convicted of the 2017 murder of 15-year-old schoolgirl, Shanika Gray, and it began in the St. James Circuit Court yesterday. The young lady's aunt gave some comments that are quite moving. Shanika's family still reeling from this horrific tragedy. And Shanika's aunt, Nikita Gray, urged the court to severely punish her niece's killer. She said, and I quote, "I never wished death on anyone until I met Gregory." Those are powerful words. "He makes me sick to my stomach. You have shown no remorse for slaughtering my niece like an animal." She went on to say, "Gregory Roberts needs more than just a slap on the wrist. He should not be able to commit crimes like this and get away with it. Today, Your Honor, I ask for no mercy when you make your decision in sentencing him. He deserves life in prison with no consideration for parole." The aunt has told the court that this issue has caused her, the fact that this family has to be dealing, her family has to be dealing with this weighty matter, has caused her to develop hypertension. And she told the court that because of Gregory Roberts' crime, her other niece is now afraid. Listen to this, listeners and viewers, because this is what we deal with in this country. This is how crime and violence, in particular murders, this is how it's shaping the next generation. She says, "My other niece is now afraid to traverse the streets of Montego Bay. You're a prisoner in your own community, a prisoner in your own country. Her other niece is afraid to go out on the road." And she didn't stop there. She says she's even afraid to attire herself like a girl because she does not want to be a target from someone like him. These are the stories we need to amplify. This is what these hoodlums, these beasts of no nation, are doing to the next generation. This young lady is scarred. I hope she's getting the counseling intervention that she needs. You know, I wonder, for a country that still has, and this is not, I'm not advocating for capital punishment, for hanging. I'm not. But for a country that has struggled with the murder problem that Jamaica has for so many decades, and for capital punishment to remain on the books, and for no one at all to come near to that in how many decades, it's quite astonishing. Quite astonishing. I say no more on that.